Tonight is Tuesday, January 28th. It is the Planning and Zoning Commission general meeting and general meeting tonight. It's we're in room 119. We're set up the general meeting. The first item on the agenda is public comment on any matters unrelated to those on the agenda. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak tonight to say anything? See that there's none. I will make one comment. We did get the 2020-2030 regional plan of conservation development. Did everybody see that?
Yes.
Everyone got a copy? Okay. Yes. At some point in time, we'll have these guys give us a report on it and we'll move forward. But anyone in the public, the Westcog also did a POCD, and Jamie Stevenson, our first selectman, was the chairman of that Westcog and a signatory of the document. Moving on. Any comments?
No, I just want to remember public.
Okay. Moving on, next item on the agenda. Amendment to site plan application number 291, special permit, land filling and regrading application number 378, Darien Housing Authority, the Royle at Darien, 719 Boston Post Road. Proposed amendment of previously approved plans to reflect corrected eastern property line and acquisition of easement on the adjacent property to the northeast at 693 Boston Post Road. If you guys on the commission remember, this is the new senior housing project. I think it's 110 units. There's a site next door that we also approved the development. It was purchased by entities of Fletcher Construction. Somehow or other there was a mistake in the property line between those two properties, and I think they're here to adjust the corrected property line. Is there anything to add?
That's right. You'll recall that the commission approved this project in 2016 when the property is being developed now, and as part of that process it was realized that the property line, that the shared property line between the subject property and Ryan Fletcher's property, 693 Boston Post Road, was incorrect. The property was resurveyed and
was incorrect based on how the survey from 2015, which I think was before the current development was involved.
That's correct. The original plot plan was from 2015. Old Town Hall Homes, or I should say the Royle at Darien, and the Darien Housing Authority has entered into an agreement with the property owner at 693 Boston Post Road to essentially Ryan Fletcher has granted an easement to the Darien Housing Authority, the property owner.
And I think the reason why this is important, I don't mean to interrupt, but the reason why I think there's a water line that runs through there.
That's correct. The water line does run through there, so the easement will allow the applicant to continue with the plans as approved, essentially. Todd McClutchy is here from representing the Royle at Darien, and he can add some details if the commission so chooses.
I would just invite Mr. McClutchy up to the podium to see if you want to add anything to what we've already kind of determined. I think we're just blessing what you guys.
Yeah, no, I think that accurately described what happened, and this easement really allows us to capture the piece of land that we originally thought was part of the ground lease parcel and part of the approved project. And then with that change, with the easement in place, there won't be any changes to the storm line that runs through that or any other aspect of the project, other than we have a couple of changes to some planting plans, and that was it. So it was pretty minimal.
I saw that there's bushes on both sides. You take care of your bushes, they take care of their bushes.
Pretty much, and we rearranged a few of them to make everybody happy.
Okay. Your site, your as-built survey, your site coverage is going to change eventually by a couple pennies, or maybe not. I don't know. Doesn't really matter.
We're still within the tolerance for the zoning, but
It's going to go higher, right?
Correct.
get, or the coverage will go lower as the land area got higher.
Yes.
Okay. You good?
Yep.
Any questions for the commission? Okay,
All right.
okay.
As
So we can vote on this item?
we can vote on it, as Todd noted in his letter, an easement will be formally filed in the Darien land records in February to formalize this agreement. Other than that, the commission can vote to approve these changes if you
So
choose to do that.
at the end of the day, it's not moving a lot line, it's just an easement of what people do. So they still own what they own, and the other people outside own what they own.
Correct, the lot line did not change, it was just shown incorrectly on that original 2015 survey. It was resurveyed and the line is now shown correctly on the survey.
Okay. I would like to vote to approve this. Looking for a motion to approve.
All right. Move.
Karen, we have Karen as
No, second.
a second, all in favor? Thank you. Sorry for the mistake, Mr. McCutcheon.
Thanks.
I think I'd just throw in, I don't know any of the history, but it looks like Mr. Fletcher did us a solid in getting this done. That's good.
Yes, he was very accommodating to make this all happen.
That's good.
Absolutely.
So everyone lives in the same town, on the same road,
Right.
makes it a little bit easier. Next item up for bid. Coastal Site Plan Review number 335, flood intervention number 386, landfill regrading number 444. Mike? Help me with this one. Gosk?
Yes.
Gosk, 28 Swifts Lane. Requested modification to previously approved plans for a pool and spa. In the file, there's a bunch of plans. To me, it's really the pool, but one of the people I respect the most is Dave Keating. He wrote 2 memos. Do you want to tell us what's going on? Or do you want to hear from the applicant?
Actually, there's 2 issues. The first is the physical location of the pool, and the original plan called for the renovation of the old pool and adding a new spa. And after they started construction on the house and were taking a closer look at the pool, it was determined that they needed to actually replace the pool rather than just renovate. So that's the first issue. Then the second issue is whether or not the commission will, in a sense, amend the approval to allow a temporary certificate of occupancy for the house to be issued while the remaining site work and landscape work gets resolved.
Okay. And with regards to elevations and 3 feet up and 3 feet down and all that, that's under your bailiwick. So is there anything we need to know about that that's pertinent?
Not yet. The first place that work, which is within 50 feet of Gorham's Pond, that needs to go to the Environmental Protection Commission first. They don't meet until next week, and so it's a little premature for this commission to try to act on that. If you said that those changes are going to be unacceptable to you, let us know now. We'll pass it on to the owner so that they can, revise the site rather than try to revise the approvals. But I think it's easiest just to deal with the pool question first, and then the temporary CO question, and then in the future you can deal with the work down near the pond itself.
Okay, so I suggest we take them one at a time, which is the pool.
Yep.
Should we ask the applicant?
So Rob, if you want to explain.
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys have had a chance to
Could you
review.
give me your name for the
Sure,
record?
Robert Metzger,
Could you spell your last name, please?
METZGAR,
Thank
And
you.
work for
from Neil Houck Architects.
And you want, okay,
Neil Houck Architects.
thank you.
I don't know how much of a chance you guys have had to review the plans there, but we are proposing a new pool, which is in essentially the same location as the existing pool. The existing pool is sort of dated, a freeform pool, which under the previous approved plan was going to be renovated with a new pool patio and a new spa that would have like an infinity overflow edge that was sort of closer to the pond. The new proposed plan is a rectangular pool with an integral spa, which is actually a little farther from the pond, which we hope makes the plan more appealing to you guys.
And the size of the pool in total went down from like 1,400 to 800 square feet or something like that?
Sure, yes, I have all the numbers here. The size of the pool did decrease, the size of the patio increased slightly by about 150 square feet, I believe.
Okay. And the size of the pool increased in total because the second spa went away, right?
Correct.
Okay. I did see some stuff in the narrative about that the setback lines and some of those things changed. One went closer, one went further.
Yes, distance from side yard setback line decreased, still well within the margin.
Right, that's what we can about.
And if you take the distance from Gorham's Pond, it actually, if you take the distance from the edge of the overflow for the proposed and approved new spa, that was, as you can see there.
It's like 14.32.
85, or excuse me, that was 77 feet from the edge of the pond, and now what we're proposing, the edge of the new pool will be 85 feet, so.
Can I suggest we put one of these up on an easel, just 'cause
Sure,
it's
I
a little
actually
difficult.
also brought a plan where,
It's hard to hear, I can't, I'm sorry. Oh, you have it, you
I
have
have
it.
actually highlighted the plan.
Oh, okay.
Roger's
It's
in
just-
the-
We just need you by a
Yeah,
microphone.
bring this,
Sure,
bring
can
it.
I, is that, can I take
No.
that off the stand?
You can take
Yeah,
that whole
we'll
stand with
stay
you.
with you.
Here's your
You only chain it down after the meeting.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Oh, you overlaid one on top of the other, nice.
I did, yes, so you can see, pink is what's, this pink here is the existing pool. The pink outline here was the new, previously approved pool patio. And the pink here is the previously approved spa and spa overflow. The green is the new proposed pool patio and new proposed pool. And of course, down here, these are section cuts as noted on the plan that show it's substantially the same. Where we come out a little further here on the pool patio, you are basically extending the sort of horizontal here a little bit farther out, so you'll get a little bit of additional fill on the slope there. It was always imagined to be a boulder slope, and we would like to continue to keep that design.
Okay, so the Gorham Pond's all the way to the right. I thought the rock wall was Gorham Pond.
Correct. This is the edge of the pond, yes.
So you're 77 to 85 with those two markers right there.
This is 77, and this is 85, yeah.
Understood, okay. Okay, so that's all, everything about the pool, right?
That is everything about the pool.
Any questions? Sorry, pool's okay. Okay, we're okay with the pool so far. What's the next problem?
Do you want to act on the pool request, or do you want to?
Yeah, but how does that tie into the temporary CFO?
Well, the approval that the Planning and Zoning Commission granted for the redevelopment of the site and for the filling and regrading said, which is a typical condition, is you finish all the site work, get it all done and completed, submit the as-built survey, needs to coincide with what's been approved, and then you're eligible for your CFO for the house.
Okay.
Obviously, they haven't done the pool work, so that regrading and site work isn't done. And then the other site work within the 50 feet of Gorham's Pond needs approval from EPC. So in his letter, Mr. Gosk requested the commission's approval to allow a temporary CFO so that he can convert from a construction mortgage to a permanent mortgage. And the house has no zoning issues. It's the pool, patio, and then this other site work that are the other things. So it's pretty possible for the commission to authorize us to issue the temporary CO, and then the building department can do that. And then those are usually granted on like 60-day extensions kind of thing.
Because they wanted, that, understood, because they're not gonna be building the pool, but then what?
Right.
Got it.
And the site work
He
and
offered
planning.
some money for a bond, didn't he?
Mr. Gosk is here and.
Oh, hello, Mr. Gosk.
Give him an opportunity to.
Yeah, did
Explain.
you suggest a $5,000?
Sure, well,
I'd be happy to come talk. I did suggest that, my name is Michael Gosk, G-O-S-K. I did suggest that, and if that would help facilitate, I'd be happy to do that. The unfortunate thing about all this is that we, as you probably saw in my letter, we spent a considerable amount of money making sure that we were in compliance with everything we needed to be in the town. We hired what we believe are people who had excellent relationships with the town, including Rob and Mr. Simpson who's in the audience this evening. And it was only within the last 10 days or so that we've come to learn that the as-built conditions were not consistent with the plans that were submitted to the town in late 2018. We are quite committed to making sure that everything that needs to get done at the house is done. I've been told by both Mr. Simpson, who represented us during the construction phase and the plan submission phase, that the work that was done down by the pond is actually superior to what was proposed. I recognize that you are not in a position to evaluate that, and you have to go through a process. So my offer of a performance bond is really meant to say that we're committed to finalizing this work, but we're now suffering real economic harm as a result of not being able to refinance a very expensive construction loan when everything else is completed. So it's really an offer to continue our good faith and cooperation with what we thought we were doing for the last 18 months as we built the house with the town.
my personal opinion, and thank you for the offer, that it's not necessary because you still don't have the C of O. So we still have the leverage of the temporary C of O versus the C of O, but I would ask the commission if they want to dwell in on that. I guess, well, that's fine. That's fine. I was gonna ask another question. Any opinions?
No opinions, just a simple question. So
Yeah.
I understand that there's been a lot of work already done. There's some work that was approved but not done yet, is that correct?
Well, the pool,
Yeah.
yes.
And is that the work that's required to be done for the CO to be granted or approved by the building department?
As I understand it, there's two issues. One is the modification of the pool, which has taken us some time to get to this point to get your approval, so we haven't started on that, and some of the observers did that in winter, so it's not an ideal time to do that. So we would have to complete the pool, which is one of the conditions. The second condition is really related to the work in the front yard and sort of the regrading of the steps that appears to be different on an as-built basis from what was submitted to the town. Now, people have told me, as you might imagine, I've been quite focused on this issue over the last 10 days, that the work that's been completed is actually superior from an environmental standpoint to what was proposed. You shouldn't take my word for that. We should go through the EPC and the P&Z, but that needs to get cleared before we would be granted the C of O, both the pool and that final work.
And just for my clarity, this is just from my own,
Sure.
like, understanding and like, so I can understand and like vote in a knowledgeable and like informed way. To refinance, to like change your mortgage, do you need what kind of approval, what kind of document, what kind of approval do you need?
Yeah,
Is it a CO or is the what do you need?
Right.
I'm not sure we're there yet, so I just wanna make sure I
So the
understand.
bank is not crazy about a temporary C of
I
O,
can understand.
but they're willing to accept a temporary C of O.
Okay.
And they've given us to June 30 to complete the work.
Okay.
And if we didn't finalize the C of O into a permanent C of O by June 30th, I'd have a problem with the bank.
Okay.
Which, in all fairness, is worse than having a problem with you guys.
No, I wanted to fully understand like the situation.
No, it's a fair
where-
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
I don't know whether I need to ask you the question or Fred. Okay, assume we agree, we say, okay, temporary CO is fine. You've gone over to the EPC and convinced them that the work that's done is better than what you propose or whatever, and they give you a problem. What's the cure? You have to redo the steps, et cetera, so that they're exactly like what was submitted?
I think we'd have to remediate, whatever they said is the problem, I think we'd have to remediate to their satisfaction in order to get them to say, this is okay.
Yes, we always, the as-built's gotta match the approved plans,
Understood.
right? So either you fix it back that was approved, or you get the approval changed.
Okay.
So if they say, if the EPC says no and we say no, he's gonna take out his 3 feet that he put in. And then after that, once they match, and Dave sees it, then he'll sign up and see it.
And we're prepared to do that.
Understood, but you've been told by your professionals that what they did is better than what was original.
We hope that's right.
Okay.
So the Environmental Protection Commission will next meet on February 5th, I believe, which would give Mr. Gosk and his representatives the opportunity to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission on likely February 11th. So the commission could reconsider that regrading work within the 50 feet of the pond at that time.
After it gets approved by the other.
Correct, after it, assuming it gets approved by EPC.
Right.
Okay. I would like to entertain a motion to approve the new pool location and the issuance of the temporary COZR ID. We have a move, do we have a second? Have a second. All in favor? You're done. You are hereby authorized, Dave, to sign his TCO.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who we got? Next. This is site plan number 296, permit, special permit number 296. Land Regrading Application number 409, FR Darien LLC, Heights Road. Request to modify condition T as in Tom of the previously approved relative to sock crushing and earth processing and hours of subdivision. This is the Federal Realty Project, Stop and Shop, and Walgreens, and Equinox, and anybody else and their brother that's over there. What we approved way back when, in 2018, is that they could crush rock for, I think it was phase 2, right?
That's correct, it was for buildings R1 and R5. R5 is now known as building R3. The commission approved rock crushing activities Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5:30 p.m. So the applicant, Sarah Ford, Federal Realty, has come back to the commission. They're asking for modifications to the rock crushing activities. They would like to be able to conduct these activities throughout the entire construction period, as opposed to just phase 2.
Let me interrupt for 1 second. With relative to that, the application, they've also asked to shorten the timing. No, the length goes, but the time of day would go to 3:30 in the afternoon. Where this becomes important is the Board of Education has asked us to look at all the traffic that's being created by these projects that are very beginning starting. And the real reason why is, one is for busing and more importantly for kids walking.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
major issue.
The issue is the in and out of trucks and where the trucks are gonna go and where, how, we want them to leave wherever they're working and get on the highway as soon as possible, or wherever they're going as soon as possible.
But
This document, from what Sarah said, is it's gonna cut down on the truck traffic, which is in concert and in line with what the Board of Education wants, and I think what all of this.
But let's just break that.
Well, let me, one more second, I'll let you go. The issue is, and the reason why we did it the last time, and just for a bigger knowledge, we allowed the Corbin District project to crush rock on their site the entire time. But they're right next to the highway, so they can, why this was only done in phase 1 and phase 2 and not phase 1, I hope you remember.
Yeah, that was gonna be my first question, was
Yeah.
why was it phase 1, not phase 2?
I
I mean, phase 2, not phase 1 and 2.
I think
There
it's
must have been a
because,
reason.
I think it's because when they were digging holes
Oh.
and going down, because they have to put in the context underneath, is the reason why. And as you get into these projects, it may make more sense to do different phasing at different times. I personally didn't think that Stop Shop was gonna be closed as early as it did get closed, and maybe knocked down as early as it's gonna be knocked down. But, you know, what do I have to say? I don't know what to say about it. So that's my overview on it, and the reason why they did it, and why I think it's probably a good idea, because if it cuts down on trucking, I think that's what, you know, that's what the Board of Education wants.
But let's get,
Go ahead, Karen.
so, right, so going from 8:30 to 5:30 in phase two.
There's, I think it's 3:30.
Right now, it's Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5 in
Correct.
phase two.
Yes.
And they wanted to move it, and they're proposing to move it to phase one and two, a shorter period of time, but still going till 3:30.
Correct.
And I think currently the busing issue is with elementary and middle school students having to walk through that area. Kids who are within the distance range that excludes them legally from busing. Doesn't mean we can't offer busing, but it means we're not required to offer busing.
At the meeting, it was related to high school.
High school?
High school kids.
But they get out even earlier.
There's a
But
neighborhood.
but the 3:30 doesn't, my point is 3:30, the latest schools in town are the elementary schools on the later dismissal schedule.
But they're
and-
shortening it, lengthening it, right?
But 3:30 is the latest dismissal of the elementary schools furthest away from the property. So the high school has already dismissed way beyond 3:30, right, they're at 2. The middle school is at 2:15.
Okay.
And the elementary schools are at 3, and the latest elementary schools are 3:30, which is Oxridge and Royle. So if they're still rock blasting at 3:30, how does that alleviate the issue of the high schoolers and middle schoolers walking in the area? I'm just asking the question. I don't know the answer.
We're not talking about blasting, let's just be clear
Oh,
about
crushing,
that.
sorry, crushing. But I'm saying if BFE is asking, if Board of Ed is asking this question, I don't see how
Where is-
3:30, because the kids are walking, they're dismissed before that.
You're missing a piece.
Okay,
One is they're shortening it, not lengthening it,
right, so 3:30.
right? It already can go to 5:30.
Right, and they're shorting till 3:30.
Correct.
And what time does high school get out?
But they would have been doing it at 3:30, would have been 3:35 to 4:30 and 5 o'clock.
Okay, but
Which
I
one?
don't see how 3, I'm literally trying to understand.
But then
This dismissal,
right, but the problem with the Board of Ed
yeah,
is the trucks coming in and out.
so that the truck's gonna stop coming in and out? That's what
There's
I'm trying
gonna be less of them.
to, okay, so that's good, that's my
Less-
question.
Right. It's, the rock crushing, the reason why the rock
So if they
crushing
stop
was,
crushing rocks at 3:30, then there's less trucks at 2.
just less trucks in total.
They've indicated that the material created from these activities
Mhm.
will be reused on the site. So there's not a need to truck this material off the site. The purpose of allowing this, let's say, extended rock crushing activity, the hours have been reduced, but the time for, it's now gonna be allowed in phase 1 and phase 2.
Correct.
Right?
But those materials will have, the applicant has indicated that those materials will be used on the site. So it'll actually reduce the truck traffic coming to and from the
And
site.
And also the volume, you can get more crushed rock into a truck versus boulders.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So
So extending it to phase 1 means they can crush more,
correct,
reduce the volume,
correct, less truck.
reuse more of it,
Mhm.
and then reduce the trucks.
Correct.
That sounds,
And instead of taking it off, having it crushed and then bringing it back.
no, that sounds loud and bad, but it sounds like it serves the purpose.
Correct. The other issue that we did have was relative to noise. And this letter states, and I think Senator who used Forest Development says that the noise is not any louder than the existing noise from the backhoes and whatnot. So we think there's a noise issue. Did I miss anything?
The second, they actually have a second request, and that is to extend the crushing activities to Saturdays as well. And that would be from 8:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon on Saturdays, where previously the commission only permitted the activities to occur Monday through Friday.
I don't know, you can't get in and out of the site. It's really got to do with noise.
Yeah, how loud is the rock crushing? Is it gonna disturb neighbors?
It's, I mean, we can.
I don't know, I'm not there.
So they indicated in their letter that the crushing activities aren't anticipated to result in any additional noise impacts over the already heavy construction activities occurring on the site. The applicant obviously isn't here tonight to represent that. That is what they've represented in their correspondence to the commission now.
Does addition of Saturday move the needle in terms of all the other topics we just talked about in terms of like volume, you know, reducing trucks, like does adding Saturdays, which I think may be a burden on neighbors, does that though, in the overall balance of things, reduce overall, yeah?
The result of that is that the hours per week are unchanged. Because you're reducing 2 hours a day, that's 10 hours.
Right,
And then you're going from
And a day.
8:30 to 3:30, and that's whatever it is.
okay.
Less than 10 hours, but.
But read the last sentence, and it also said that they're only going to do this rock crushing 2 days a week. So it's not like it happens all the time. It's when they dig a hole, they create a pile, then the pile sits in, and they pick the one pile that's a bunch of big, huge boulders, and they put it in the crusher, and they make it into sand, effectively,
Okay.
right? So they only do that.
So it won't be constant 6 days a week?
No. It's not
Okay.
constant 6 days a week.
So it just gives them flexibility?
Correct.
That
And
seems
we want, the goal is less traffic on our roads.
nice. And flexibility gets done faster.
Correct. Exactly.
I do think, a favorable factor is that on one side of this is Heights Road and the railroad. So there's no residents over there at all, and any truck traffic appears to be headed toward Heights Road and not West Avenue, so I think those are favorable factors as well.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It makes sense. But I also, in the meeting, the OPC meeting, which is the Operation Plan meeting,
Yeah.
I told the Board of Ed to tell the schools, to tell the kids, there is no sidewalk that's on West Avenue, on Heights Road anyway, that they should walk up and down Poetry Bridge Road and the Road Avenue versus crossing at Heights Road. But my kid doesn't, so. Okay, that's enough for me.
Walk where they're closest.
Any questions at all?
Not for me.
No,
Jim's okay?
it seems reasonable.
Yep, all good.
Okay, we entertain a motion to approve their request.
Sure.
We have a move, we have a second? Jim's got it?
Yeah, I'm jumping his toes.
All those in favor? There we
Awesome,
go.
it's over here.
Thank you. Good luck, Federal. I'm on TV tonight, my wife is watching. I said I won't go home for dinner. I'm watching TV. Okay, now we're gonna move into deliberations. The first deliberation we had is the request by Hollow Tree Self-Storage to put in mine storage in the basement. I will read it. Proposed amendments to the Darien zoning regulations, COZR number 1-2020, put forth by Affordable Self-Storage Co. Inc. Amendment to business site plan application number 293, special permit 131 Hollow Tree Ridge Road. I don't want to read the bottom part, I don't think I need to read the bottom part.
No, you don't need to.
But this is effectively allowing Hollow Tree Self-Storage to put in a wine cellar in the basement, which is about 4,896 square feet, and use that space, which is now not used. And in concert with that, put in a glass enclosed, quote-unquote, wine tasting and display room. The hours will not change, the parking will not really be affected. It's all key coded and locked. Open up to the floor, if anybody has any questions. So this, yeah?
I just, this will apply to all the properties in
Yes.
the zone.
In the AH,
There-
in the 3.1 AH zone, of which there is only one.
Correct.
Okay.
Only
So
one property.
in effect, we're not impacting anything else with the Darien,
That's
the
right.
Brooks Brothers thing, it does not affect.
That's right.
Okay, no, I have no questions.
And I would just add one point of clarification to what Steve has already mentioned, is that it's a combined application, right? So it's a proposed zone change and then a business site plan special permit application as well. So to enable the special permit aspect of this to occur, the commission must adopt the zoning regulation also being proposed by the applicant tonight.
And just as a condition, what he said, we typically try to break those two things apart, like we do with BMW.
But we're not here.
Right, but out here, this is so small and minor, and there's only one property inside it. That's why. George?
I'm fine.
Carrie?
Can we just reiterate the time that the wine tasting meetings, I know it was a meeting room or a wine tasting room, but that, again, there was key code access, and that the hours that self-storage customers are permitted in the property are limited, correct?
Correct.
I mean, that's my concern. My concern is allowing, all hours access
Well,
to host alcohol, next to 95.
okay, how about this?
It's just my concern, but if it's controlled,
No, it's kind of sort of not controlled. It's kind of sort of not controlled, because I could go to my boat at Christmas Eve at midnight, right?
Sit in
I
there and
understand,
vote and-
we're gonna have a chance to look at the hours in the resolution. So you can look at the hours in the resolution, but if you wanna go to your self-storage unit at pretty much any time, and we'll look at what the resolution says, you can pretty much go there anytime.
but you can't serve alcohol in
Understood,
it to guests.
correct.
And that's what they're asking to do, so I think we need to make sure
You can look at
that
that.
the hours and the access is restricted. If we're changing both the zoning and the site plan.
I think the applicant noted during the public
They
hearing
did.
that the hours were restricted
Yes.
to, I believe, we would have to check the testimony in the record, but I believe it was indicated that the hours were somewhere along the lines of 9 in the morning until 10 o'clock in
Right.
the evening.
It's
So
not even 6 o'clock.
I thought
so
was
it wouldn't
earlier.
be 24-hour access to that
And it
space.
certainly wasn't later than bars and restaurants in the neighborhood.
I see where you're going.
Right.
No, I just
No,
wanna
I
make
agree
sure.
with you, no, I agree with you. So if you're at Kara's house and you run out of wine at 2 o'clock in the morning,
Right,
I can go scooch over there and get some.
I mean, we have to,
It's a very good point, no, you're right, it's a very good point.
but I think it's, there are controls in place in
Well,
terms.
you can put controls on it. 'Cause
No, I
it's
think that
controlled.
I think it was already stated that the hours are controlled by the key card
Correct.
and by the gate that was opening.
But you can put restrictive hours that you can't get into
But
that one
we don't need that for the
space.
site plan, we need that, just won't there be a permit, like an activity?
Special permit.
Right,
At the end of the day, we're gonna get 2 documents.
right, so I just wanna make sure that like the site plan anticipates that there will be a permit application that will anticipate, they already have sort of like logistically these things in place, but
Great.
then when the site plan comes, these concerns will be addressed.
Got it.
Otherwise,
I
I
thought
think,
they already have, I thought we're doing the site plan now.
It's a special permit.
but I'm talking about the special permit, but I think the site plan addresses the things that the site plan.
The site plan deals with the
Like,
parking.
if the site plan, if the special permit says we'll control the stuff, but the site plan doesn't anticipate that there's locks and things already as part of it, you don't have to go back and revise the approval of the site plan.
Okay, we're getting an additional plan, so.
No.
All right.
No, we got
Permit.
the
We got
plans, yeah.
That's what I
And
thought.
they have all these things in it that
Okay.
the permit will include.
Is the commission looking to restrict the hours more than what its normal hours of operation are? So If the applicant indicated that access to that space is
That
from
specific space,
9 AM to 10 PM, is that,
yes,
the commission needs to determine, is that acceptable?
correct.
Let me suggest as an approach, if we're inclined to go along with this change in principle, then perhaps we can address the particularities in the context of a draft.
Exactly, yeah, it's something else, yeah,
Yeah.
then, of course.
So you can review what was testified to as terms of what their operation
Right.
hours are, and then we can
Right.
fine tune it if we think it's
Mhm.
necessary.
Yeah, I think you have a great point, you can't, you know, if the liquor stores are closed, you shouldn't be able to do it. I got it.
The
Okay.
nature of the use was also discussed at the public hearing, and how much are people gonna wanna go into the basement of a self-storage facility to sit down in a room to,
Right, no, but it's, I think it's.
I frequently go into my storage unit and look at the junk
Yeah.
in there with a six-pack of beer in it.
Bring a tear to your eye,
All right, I'm hearing that we're getting a favorable,
Yeah.
approval of this request. When you do draft up the resolution, I think the special permits consider the hours are X to Y, whatever the applicant asked for. And if we wanna tweak that at some point in time.
And I think just, you know, they already spoke to the gates and everything being controlled, and so I think as long as because I know it won't be staffed, but there are, despite not being 24-hour staffed, there's technology and controls in place to police that.
And there's different,
Right, yeah, which I think is like
yes,
important to the approval.
yes, for this specific space.
Yes.
Okay, you guys are already going, right? Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, next. What are we next? Subdivision application. Donoghue, subdivision application number 625, land filling and regrading application number 475, Michael and Cecilia Donoghue, 765 Hollow Tree Ridge Road. This is, if you guys remember, a 5-acre site on Hollow Tree Ridge Road in the, 700 block. It's in a 2-acre zoning piece. There's a bunch of wetlands in the back, and they've asked to pretty much subdivide it north side, south side, and leave a driveway. The driveway is gonna go over, the new driveway is gonna go over a inactive wetlands area that, is gonna remain in the same state, but they're gonna add additional wetlands in the back, and it's in an active area. I was kind of impressed how they had so many different consultants and people working on this, which I would have figured you would have had one guy. The house that they've cited on the new lot, is what we typically see, that there's a footprint, or I actually call it a zoning building envelope, where they physically put a house on it. Sometimes they'll make lots like that, and there's no way you can wedge a house in it. This one, the house potential footprint's fine. I think the septic system, the land can hold a septic system that's big enough for a 5-bedroom house, because there's no sewer up there. That's my full reading.
and that's correct. It's the health department signed off on the conceptual septic plans as the second lot is developed. Of course, as Steve mentioned, the plans show a conceptual house there. They'll likely, the applicant would likely need to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission for regrading application or other related applications to develop the site. They would need approval from the health department and Environmental Protection Commission as well for any development within 50 feet of a wetland on that site.
We also got the, excuse me, I'm sorry, we also got the approval from the EPC.
Yes,
in
that's
our
right. We
packets.
included the EPC approval in your packets.
We got that approval in our packet. And the house also was predetermined that a pool could fit at this location with a 5-bedroom house. a lot of times we see subdivisions where the house barely fits, and then all of a sudden they come back later and they go, oh, we want to add a pool. Like, well, you should pull something.
But key to that was right, removing a tennis court.
Correct, yeah, there's a huge tennis court there, and the footprint of the tennis court is smaller than the footprint of the house.
Right, so I think that's important to know.
So basically, everybody else is kind of sort of signed off on it. Any questions, Kara?
I know the fire department had made a comment, and then I think there were conversations. Are we comfortable that the fire department is on board? I think there were conversations about, there was another hydrant that was located close by. You know, that just is like hanging out there for me, but otherwise I'm comfortable.
I kind of sort of think that's an insurance thing. I mean, there are houses in Dutchess County that's on fire.
I think there's a fire hydrant near me, but.
Yeah, it's on fire with 50 miles.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get the fire department, they can say, hey, we want one every 100 feet.
Right.
You know?
It's our understanding that the fire marshal's office is comfortable with the current situation. The applicant presented several alternatives to
There were.
To a hydrant as well, in terms of a cistern on the site or a dry hydrant, utilizing the pond on the adjacent property, which of course would require an agreement with the neighboring property owner, but alternatives do exist, and we think that the fire marshal's office is at this point comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
George?
No problem.
Jim?
I'm fine.
Okay, sounds like to me you're writing up a approval for that one. Okay. Next.
Do we need a motion or something?
No, yeah, it's in draft.
Okay.
Okay, now we are done with our deliberations, but now we're going to do deliberations and potential approvals, possible decisions on a couple existing already written up resolutions. The first one is proposed amendments to the Darien zoning resolution, COZR number 5-2019, put forth by Felix F. Callari, Inc., doing business as BMW Darien. Excuse me. We reviewed a initial draft of this draft resolution, that's what it's about to be called, last week. I had some suggested changes, I think other people in the commission had some suggested changes, and our crack staff added some suggested changes and whatnot. I went over everything that I was looking for, and it looked as beefed up to me, looked pretty good. How about George, any questions?
I saw one comment. It looked to me like there was now a requirement to combine the two lots.
Yes.
I didn't recall that discussion, or it was, okay, why do we require that? Or, they're two different owners, I think.
Wilder Gleason asked to. Wilder Gleason said that he would combine the two lots. You're talking about on page number 5, which is the new A. I think it's represented applicant attorneys. The commission hereby require the combine of the two lots.
Right, okay.
You made a great point. It was, we changed it from parcels to, I think, property.
From
Because-
property, actually, two lots or something.
Yeah, something with an S too. These two tax parcels add up to more than 3 acres. One, for argument's sake, is 1.2 acres. The other one is 1.9 acres.
Mhm.
So individually, they don't. You can't do it. So
Right, individually you can't.
right. To me, the way I look at it, it's a zoning lot. But I think this makes it even cleaner. What the other request that we had was, there's only 3 other tax parcels, 3 other properties that are affected by this. You don't want to have to go to Whole Foods and require them to combine their 2 tax lots. And I think the same one is Jaguar, and their 2 tax lots. Because not really party to this application. But I think that while they brought it up, we're just making him, you know, do what he said he can do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, pretty much. I'm not sure why that's necessary. And with that,
Finding 6 on page 2, we also
Yeah.
note that the applicant's attorney noted that, as Steve mentioned, that the subject properties, lot 21E and 22, lot number 22, owned by Ledge Road Associates, could be combined. And he, at the public hearing, expressed a willingness to do that. And we think that, as Steve mentioned, because those 2 individual lots are less than the 3 acres each, it makes sense to combine those 2. The zoning regulation requires those larger lots that are enabled by this zoning amendment to be a minimum of 3 acres in size. So we think that the combination of those 2 lots makes sense in terms of jiving with the regulation.
so the regulation's going to require that any lot be at least 3 acres.
Yes.
Yes.
Just for clarification, these 2 lots meet the 3 acre requirement without the leasable
Yes.
parcel.
That's
Yes.
correct,
Okay.
yes.
That was my recollection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any additional?
I have no additional comments.
Karen,
Nope,
you good?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no typos, no nothing, everyone's all good? All right, I would entertain a motion to.
I did catch one. Number 16 is duplicated is consistent.
We have a Scrivener's error.
Yes, we do.
Number 16.
what is it?
First line is consistent, it's consistent.
Got it, nice catch.
Oh, yeah, very proud.
Yes, the proposal is contingent, nice. There you go, my number.
Somebody's reading carefully.
All right.
There you go.
Missed that.
With that one amendment, I would entertain a motion to approve as amended with the Scrivener error.
Hang on just
Nope.
a second. Well, I'm just
There's
looking
that
at
one.
the
I mean,
actual,
I'll move
Okay.
it, as amended.
We moved it, okay? They still have to get to the open discussion. We're fine.
well, yeah, I see that we are requiring the I'm looking at, now therefore be it resolved, which seems to me is the meat of the matter here.
Yeah.
It says we are requiring the combination of these lots. But does that mean that any other property that might be, say the Jaguar property, I suppose, if they were 2 properties, they would have to be combined in order to be 3?
The Jaguar property is 1 lot and it
Right.
exceeds
3
3 acres.
So there isn't anything else this would impact then, so I shouldn't have to worry about.
I
I would be concerned if I was suggesting that any other couple of lots that were impacted by this zone, we were requiring that they be combined in order to get this,
But it's requiring a combination of this lot and that lot.
just these lots. Right. And they don't care, so I should.
Just these 2 lots. The only other property subject to these regulations would be the Whole Foods property.
Right.
That is, Whole Foods also has 2 lots, however, the larger of their 2 lots exceeds 3 acres as well.
We're not requiring any combination of 2 lots that together equal 3 acres. It's hereby requiring the combination of lot 21F
Yes,
and lot, right? The lots are specified.
Regardless of their size, you mean?
It doesn't say, it doesn't
Right,
say,
no,
yeah,
that's
yes,
your point, it's
yeah.
regardless of
Right.
their size, okay.
correct.
Yeah,
We're not
okay.
requiring combination of any other lots, it's solely,
Because I think that would be problematic,
Yes, agreed.
Yeah,
to your
and
point,
I,
George.
yeah, it's up there, they're all the same owners, but I understand they can do it, so they'll do it, okay.
And the lots are
I'm good.
specified.
Huh?
The lots are specified,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, okay,
Looking for a second.
I'm happy to do it now.
All those in favor? You're trying to get into the 90 minutes.
Damn right.
There he is. Okay, all in favor?
Okay, great. Great.
Unanimous,
Done.
number 8. On my list, we have a coastal site plan review number 331B, flood prevention application number 382B, Jeffrey and Jill, I missed this one.
Stu.
Stu? At, Studi at 214 Long Neck Point. This is a new dock. This is the Zangrillo property, and they're moving the existing dock on their house 25 feet to one way. It's a stick layout along that point. Our jurisdiction is, you know, the number of, small number of feet of high water mean area.
Mean high water.
Mean high
Above mean
water.
high water, correct.
You gotta ask the guy because of the Suez Canal.
Right.
I just think of note for us, when we look at these applications on page number 2, state of CT, DEP, and Army Corps of Engineers approvals, it states their approvals right here, that they got these approvals already, for the stuff that's outside in the border. So this is something we see very much. For if we ever see a future resolution like this. I'm fine with the way it's drafted, you guys did it, we've done a lot of these in the last year.
No comments,
Any comments from Jim?
no errors, no.
George?
All good?
Karen?
Okay.
All good? Looking for a motion to approve as drafted? George?
Happy then?
Looking for a second?
Got a second.
Jim? All in favor? Aye?
It's like a revival meeting, I'm looking for an amen.
That's what it is, man. I got 8:58. I love these two, the next two ones are my favorite.
Oh, jeez.
That's not too fun, right? One's a little bit better than the other one. Next one is, landfilling excavation regrading application number 747, Michael and Molly Young. 474 Michael and Molly Young, 68 Peach Hill Road, proposal to regrade the western portion of the property behind the existing residence, create a flat lawn area, and construct a retaining wall along the western side of the property, to construct a new parking area on the west side of the existing driveway for related site development activities. This is the town of Darien, so we're making a soccer area and a cross area for the kids. Again, I think that some of the important findings on this one are number 5, stormwater management. They had Rob Frangione of Frangione Engineering, which you've seen many, many times. Put a letter in the record that the flat network will lead to a slight decrease in water runoff rate for the portion of the property. All the other down there for us seem pretty good to me. We've seen a lot of these too, haven't we?
You have?
You ever seen this many of these in your old town you worked at? A lot of sackers across places. Kara, any questions, comments?
No.
George?
No, sir.
Jim?
I'm okay.
And looking for a motion to approve as drafted. It's Kara's turn. George is second. All those in favor? Yeah, she beat you. Okay, next. Landfilling excavation regrading application number 473. Wow. Menglu Andrew Gardiner at 15 Wilson Ridge Road. Proposal to fill and regrade the southeast portion of property to create a flat lawn area, construct a boulder retaining wall, protect the existing tree, and perform related site development activities. Decision deadline is March 26, 2020. Again, this is it's another, the applicant or the guy who represents the applicant, Jim Cecilia, we've seen him a number of times. One thing that's I think important behind this, there's an easement, a drainage easement in the back that we're not allowed to touch. And they're creating a swale so the water doesn't get out of the property and it goes the way it's supposed to go. And the site next to them is higher than them, right? Not lower. So the water can go up.
The easement terminates on the subject property on 15 Wilson Ridge and then flows south through the adjacent property out towards Wilson Ridge extension
Storm drain, yeah.
into a storm drain in the street there.
By a
You'll
pipe,
note,
right? By a pipe from.
Yeah.
correct,
PVC.
yes, that's right. And you'll note that we've included a condition in here, condition E, that prohibits any heavy equipment
On top of
from
pipe.
being located in that easement area to minimize any potential damage to the drainage structure that is located in the ground.
Nobody has any idea who put that there. Which is fine.
It's not entirely clear.
I had some concerns at the hearing about the boulder wall, but those were taken care of when we spoke about it. I'm fine with it. No neighbors complained either. Karen? Good? George? Good?
No, good.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve as drafted? Whose turn is it? Jim's turn. Kathy? Jim? Look for a second, we got Karen, all those in favor? Aye? You guys do so far this week.
Moving right
All right,
along.
moving right along. Yeah, I knew it was gonna be 90 minutes, that's what I was trying to figure out on the Mondays. Okay. I quote number 11. In our packet, there's a multifamily housing construction document in Darien since 2000. This, in today's environment, is really, really important. For the people that are new to the commission, this has been in draft for, I want to say, 2 years. We did it a while, then we looked at it again in May of 19. May of 19. I had some changes, these guys made some changes, they fixed it up. What this document is supposed to say is what has the town of Darien done for multifamily housing and affordable housing. I thought it was in the past decade, it actually ends up being in the past 20 years. If you read the papers, this is a lot of stuff that is very much in the news today. I do have 2 questions or maybe additional footnotes, but I would like the commission tonight to vote to approve this so it can be published and distributed and, put in the papers and sent to the governor's office and where else it's gonna go. My additions and changes are the second one on the item, Baywater Properties, that's 1014 to 1020 Boston Post Road. And maybe you're gonna remember this, Dave. The top of the building has apartments. Those apartments were designed for workforce housing, but my understanding, they were never ever deed restricted. The first couple occupants of those apartments were like librarians that worked in town. But they were never included in the 830G moratorium points because there was no affordable units. Do you know if there's still workforce housing or something like that?
I don't know if it was required to be a deed restriction.
It was never deed restricted.
I don't know if it was required to be and they failed to,
No.
or if it was just a representation of here's what we'd like to do, as opposed to a mandatory thing that they had to do. I'll have to look up the records and see.
Because that's what, the latter half is kind of what you said, and I would assimilate it to Kensett 1, where Kensett 1 was designed for age targeted, but it was never required to be age targeted. This was designed for town workers like firemen and police and librarians. So if we could do a footnote like you did on the other ones for that, and just add it, I would think that's a good suggestion. Anybody have a problem with that?
No, the note would be that,
It's understood.
originally intended as workforce.
Correct. Right, there was definitely some problem, you're not allowed to say Darien workforce housing, because
Okay.
that's an issue, but it was designed for that. And I know the first person that lived there was like a librarian, but she eventually moved out, it was a woman, the librarian was a woman, she eventually moved out, and I don't know who is in it now, but.
Isn't it easy just to call
David.
Right, you call David, but I would like to find out answers tonight, if they can make a footnote for that, then great. The other one is, also a Baywater Properties thing, and I'd like to footnote that one too, Mead House, 745 Boston Post Road. That one has, again, it has number of affordable units 0, it's not 830G, it's not age restricted. That one is where we got the cash, we got money in lieu of affordable housing units. Because you're allowed to do one of three things, you can either build them on site, you can build them off site, or you can give us money that goes into the affordable housing fund. So I would like to note that that one got we got money for that.
Lieu of units.
So, yeah, in lieu of units, bunch of it,
Right.
like, mirror the language in the statute.
Okay, it's in our, it's at, I think it's at our discretion of whether we want money on site or off site, right? But whatever it is, we got money for that one. The thing that I think you don't wanna do is, you don't wanna double count that stuff. You can, I get the bug, you can, because the money went to the Royle at Darien. You follow me?
Mhm.
There's no units, so they can't count the unit.
You can't count the units, can't count the moratorium.
There's no double counting.
Okay, as long as we're not double
We're
dipping.
footnoting that in lieu of,
Just for interest,
Right.
information purposes.
yeah,
Correct,
exactly.
okay. That's the only two changes I had. I think page 2, do we need page 2?
Yeah, it contains more history.
Yeah, these are just all the.
It's the full story.
A continuation of the first page is since 2000, the second page is pre-2000.
Okay.
Somebody went through a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think, why not? But also, it gives the entire number, like, moratorium count is one thing, but this gives the full story of like, what multi-dwelling housing is in Darien,
Right.
and that, you know, there's been efforts
Right.
pre-existing 2000.
Right.
It is important.
I think the big takeaway from this is that in the last 20 years, 31.7% of the multi-family housing in this town was built for had an affordable component to it. Whereas the state statute is 10%.
12%.
Well, the state statute is 10,
You know,
Darien
10
has
to
12.
total
Correct.
housing.
10 for the state, 12 for the town.
Exactly. So we are, in the process that we were going, we were 3 times the state requirement of affordable
So
housing.
great thanks to the heights that they're in.
Correct.
I did want to inquire about Corbin District. I guess I wasn't here at the time and maybe I lost the debate, but are those affordable units going to be there at Corbin Drive and Post Road, or are they going to be on, isn't it Lost?
Some of each.
It's gonna be 7 Beach.
Oh, some of each, okay,
There's 2 or 3, I think, in town,
okay.
and then there's 12?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's
There's
like
2
6.
buildings of 6, right?
Yeah, so
That's
there's
good
two,
point.
there's 2 affordable units within
Up to,
the,
okay.
within the Corbin development, and then there are 12 deed restricted, affordable for adults with special needs.
That's okay. Can
Um,
we go down that road then? Either one, can we add that address, which is on
Yeah.
Park Lane, I think it is? East Lane.
East Lane.
East Lane. So you can either add that to approved yet not yet constructed. I'd rather have it in the approved yet not
Yes.
yet constructed. So you have that address on East Lane.
No, we're going to divide it.
Um,
Right.
And
It's not going
then,
to be East Lane.
He's saying I want to move to approve that you're constructed.
it's not on here. That address is not on here.
Oh, it's because it's included.
Correct, it's included in there, then the footnote below, it says 12 of the 14 core districts or affordable, it doesn't give the address there either, which is footnote F.
Right, I know I said.
Yeah, we can have the address.
Can you? That'd be great.
Okay,
Okay.
do I, excuse me,
Uh-huh.
did he buy the property next door also, did I hear?
No, not that I'm aware of.
East Lane.
Yeah.
Okay, So if we could do those three, I think it's 2 footnotes, and either you're gonna add the address to it.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, we'll do that, and then fix the footnote F.
Yes.
That would be great. I would like to take a vote of this, so we vote to approve it as amended.
To approve it, I mean,
We're blessing it.
we're,
I move
where's-
that it be approved and distributed
Distributed.
to the appropriate bodies.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know where the data came from, but I'm confident it came from like,
Oh, no, it's been vetted.
I'm saying, but it's nothing for us to prove, it's not, there's no petition here. So let's just
Right.
vote to make it public.
Perfect.
yeah, that's
Is
it.
that right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, can you make that motion?
Sure, motion to make, document produced, called Housing Multi-Dwelling since 2019, and the file name on the bottom of the corner, and then the attachment, which is Housing Multi-Dwelling since 2019, titled at the top, Multifamily Housing Darien, pre-2000, 2000.
2000.
Page 1 is multi-housing constructed in the town of Darien since 2000, with the amendments as discussed.
Nice.
Looking for a second?
I'd be happy to.
Got a second? All's in favor? Thank you. Great job with this, guys. And great job for
Yeah,
town
we
here.
already did that, that was great work.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful and I think really informative, and I think the public will definitely be interested in seeing this. I think for transparency and just for public interest, it's important to be out there, so I think this is really great.
Thank you, Chair. Next, just approve of minutes, January 7th, and you might be able to get 40, an hour 15.
Oh my goodness.
There's a resolution in the middle, but you can't change that at all, it's a cherry law, that takes the most of it. Chairman's report, what did I say? Yeah, keep it to 90 minutes, look at me. I'm going 75 tonight in 2 minutes. Mr. Ginsburg. Any questions, comments, scrivener's errors, adjustments?
All good?
Nope.
Vote straight for a motion to approve as drafted. George is up.
Again, sure.
There we go.
Jim, did you put your hand up?
Well, I'm willing to volunteer.
Right.
Karen did.
Okay,
I
I
threw
Okay.
my
Alright, so
all in the
how-
army, so.
George, motion, Kara seconded.
Okay, because I saw Jim's hand go
He
up.
did.
Sorry,
I got you.
I'm confusing those people.
Swinging a bait. Swinging a bait. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, 4-0, none? Okay. Calendar update. Next 2 commission meetings are February 4th, likely to be canceled. You can make that a game changer. February 11th, general meeting. February 25th, general meeting, public meeting. We have the guy from Raymond Street coming back on what date? The
He
25th?
is coming back on the 25th, February 25th.
And by the guy, we mean the dock
14,
builder?
14 Raymond Street.
He's not the dock, he's not the applicant. Oh, he is the applicant, he's not the property owner.
Correct.
Dock builder, okay.
Correct.
So the next commission, the commission will next likely meet on the 11th, February 11th. We will provide you with an update on village districts. We're likely to see John Vaccaro come before the commission with respect to the theater building at 1077 Boston Post Road, to give us an update on that and informally present to the commission what he's planning to do there. We talked about 28 Swifts Lane tonight. They'll come before us again on the 11th. That will be the commission's next meeting on February 25th. We have a public hearing night. Ox Ridge School is likely to come before us again for an informal discussion of the redevelopment of that site. Then we have a number of public hearing items, including that 14 Raymond Dock.
Just for clarity or clarification, I don't think it's a conflict. my children attended Oxford School, but my youngest, well, my older kids attended, they're gone.
Oh, great, okay.
They're not, they're okay. My youngest is there, but he's a fifth grader, so the new building,
You're gonna miss it.
yeah, I mean, I will hold on to it in the deer, like, but I just want it out there,
No
that my
conflict.
kid, yeah, I don't think it's a conflict, I want it out there.
6 of my 7 grandchildren went there, and I live next door to it.
Could you, I think everybody got this? No, not everybody got this. I got an email, last Wednesday, the 22nd, just relative to the Pemberton 16. He was supposed to be here tonight, John Luizos. He's pushed it back because there's a bunch of paperwork.
Yes.
Is there anything you can comment on Mr. Luizos, on what he's doing?
All I can say at this point is,
Well, he's,
He asked for a postponement.
yeah, all I can say at this point is
Yeah,
that
so we really should do that.
That sounds all right.
he plans on, meeting with the commission in an executive session on March 10th,
okay,
and he will provide you with updates at that time.
fantastic. All right,
Good.
any other business, 2/3 vote? Nope. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, motion to adjourn, looking for a second.
I was waiting for Mr. I thought he was
All those in
gonna-
favor? Aye.
Well
Done.